Which one's better, 5.56 or 6.5 Grendel? Today on Precision Rifle Network. Alright guys, so what I've got here is two almost identical guns from CMMG. Both in their Resolute line, the 200 series, except this one is chambered in 5.56 and this one is chambered in 6.5 Grendel. What I'd like to do is just kind of compare and contrast and figure out which caliber, which rifle would be good for what type of a role or a function, and maybe help you guys figure out which one you might like to go with if you could only have one. If you can have one of each, pick up one of each. They're great rifles, but we're just going to kind of get them out to realistic distances for the way that each rifle is set up and show you what they can do. That's what we're doing today. Let's get started. Alright guys, what we're doing here to start out with is I've got the 5.56, and this has been previously zeroed at 36 yards, kind of the Marine Corps zero. I know they probably did it in meters. Yards is close enough, it still works guys, so don't give me a hard time for that. Did a previous video on it, I'll link it up above. Or down below, but basically you zero a standard 5.56 at 36 yards, and then if you look at the ballistic drop chart, you know, it kind of climbs and then it comes back down, right where the two cross are equal zeros, and that happens to be 300 yards if you zero at 36 yards. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to go ahead and just go straight out to 300 yards with the 5.56 and see if I can get some impacts on the steel down there. And then I'll be switching to the 6.5 Grendel, and I want to show you some weaponized math from Frank and Sniper's Hide and Mark Taylor, and we'll get the Grendel out on steel as well. There's 300. There's 300. 300. 300. So 36 and 300 guys, the zero works, especially for a standard AR with a red dot. Just a quick little pro tip, you might have to reduce the brightness of your red dot all the way down to where you can just barely see it. Otherwise, you know, the red dot in here is completely covering your target downrange. Now if it's a man-sized target, obviously different, but this is zeroed. It hits, no problem, point of aim, point of impact at 300 yards, and all the way in, you know, within just a couple of inches. So this one is good to go. Let's switch over to the Grendel. Alright guys, so here's the deal. I went ahead and got my zero done on the Grendel. I hadn't set this rifle up yet, and I zeroed with two shots and then two more shots, trying to figure it out. You'll see on the group that I post for you, which is typically what I do. I fire one, I see where it's at, I fire another one to see if it's actually there, and then I make my adjustments in scope. So you'll see a couple of groups on there that are 2-shot groups, and then there's a 5-shot group for the accuracy of the Grendel. And as you can see, it's about, you know, 3/4 of an inch at 100 yards. So as I start stretching this guy out in distance, I've got 500 yards to deal with today, which is perfect for a Grendel. We're going to talk a little bit more about the useful distances for those, but you can gather your dope just using this card and weaponized math, because what they've done is they've doped gravity. Doesn't matter the bullet, doesn't matter the weight, doesn't matter how fast it's going. Gravity pulls at the exact same rate. Hopefully we can all agree on that. So this chart is all about doping gravity, and it's super, super helpful. Alright guys, while we're waiting for that 6.5 Grendel to cool down a little bit so we can stretch it out to the 400 and 500 yard distances, I thought we'd just talk about quickly, what is the 5.56 good for, right? This is not a long-range platform. Can we agree with the way that it's set up, right? No bipod, no magnified optic, kind of cheap plinking rounds, which is what the vast majority of shooters are going to be using. This is set up the way that the vast majority of people are going to be setting up their rifles, right? So this might be good for home defense. It might be good for, you know, plinking targets at the range at say 100, 200, maybe 300 yards. So really good for hunting big critters inside of that distance, fleshy type critters that are big, you know, shapes like this. really good for that. You got to be able to shoot them standing offhand. You got to be able to just kind of run up and support them against a tree. You got to, you know, those are the types of things that an AR like this is good for, right? So 100 yards. Right, so all day long at 100 yards with it like that. I'm not going to try and take a standing offhand 200 or 300 yard shot, but you get the idea. Those are the types of distances that a setup like this is good for. You know, the CMMG is a really nice, reliable weapon system. 16-inch, you know, standard length barrels with the muzzle brakes. You've got their rip stock, which is super simple and easy to adjust. Most people will run it all the way out for any kind of, you know, more precise shots. You might tuck it in tight if you're trying to stay real compact for clearing your home or operating inside of and around a vehicle, those sorts of things. But you can quickly rip it out there. Obviously, you take any type of 223 5.56 style magazines, throw a good red dot on top like this Crimson Trace, and you're good to go. We got our impacts at 300, so going out to 400, we're going to need 6.5 MOA of elevation to be on at our 400 yard target. So I'm going to dial up to 6.5, and we'll see what we get on our wind. It is pretty switchy down there today. Alright, looks like we need about one more MOA to true that up. Let me check again. I'm going to give it a half. So instead of 6.5, we were 7 at 400 yards. So, looking at our math here, we need the equivalent of 3 mils at 5. So looking at my conversion here, coming down my mils line to 3 mils, we're going to need 10.25 MOA at 500. There's 10.25 at 500. And our wind was switchy down there, so again, we're going to be lucky to get this, but we're going to try it anyway. There's our impact on the water line. Impact water line, we actually needed 12 out there. So we're going to come up to 12 MOA. So now, just using the chart, the weaponized math, and roughly 10 rounds, we have effectively doped the 6.5 Grendel out to 500 yards, having no previous data about the speed or anything. So now let's talk briefly about what the 6.5 Grendel would be good for, right? We're going to throw a bipod on a gun like this, right? We're going to throw a magnified optic on a gun like this. We're going to run a rear bag because we're trying to be more precise. I've taken a couple of different designated marksman rifle classes, and you know, the DMR type roll is everything from, you know, precise prone shots like a law enforcement sniper might take at 100 yards or less, 200 yards prone, something like that, but most of it is positional, right? It's going to be off of a car window, it's going to be off of a modified prone type position, it's going to be you know, on a with this caliber, it could be a deer off of a tree branch. The kinds of stuff we find in PRS, NRL style competition is right in line with a designated marksman type role. It's just an AR platform in a more efficient cartridge that you want to be more precise with. That really is all there is to it. Now the CMMG, this is the Resolute, the 200 series in 6.5 Grendel. And it, again, it's got an 18-inch barrel. It's it's well built to handle these specific types of rolls in these conditions and handle it quite well. You saw the accuracy of the gun, 3/4 MOA at 100 yards. So as long as the shooter is doing their part, it's extremely capable. And as we look at the ballistics here, you can see that the drop data still retains a good amount of energy at 500, 600 yards for the Grendel. Definitely better than the 5.56. So it would make a much better deer cartridge and a much better man cartridge out at those slightly further distances as opposed to the 5.56. So again, the CMMG Resolute, the 200 series, these guys are great to work with, an awesome company. They loaned me this rifle for the test. I actually own the 5.56 version. You know, one of the cool features about this gun is the rip stock. It's still got a button on the back where you can adjust, but simply just put pressure onto the rear and you can pull this stock out. It's a very nice, quick feature. You've got an oversized ambidextrous charging handle, which is nice. Ambidextrous controls all the way around, completely free-floated. You've got a brake up front. Really good system, guys. And you can check out their website for more information, but I've been really impressed with it so far. Impact. 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 So as you can see, guys, no issues whatsoever with that setup. If you've got an AR setup like this with a red dot, EOTech, whatever it might be, highly recommend that Marine Corps Zero, that 36 and 300 yard Zero, because you're effective then on man-sized targets and even deer all the way in and through that range, right? If you need to be more precise, you need a little more energy for those longer distance shots, say out to 600 yards, 6.5 Grendel might be an absolutely stellar choice for that. So hopefully this helps you a little bit today, guys. Thanks for watching Precision Rifle Network. Tune in again soon for more great videos.